Yeah. Oh, good.
So,
I know.
this working?
We got home till about 11 last night from the concert, but it was fun.
What concert?
Chipalmu opening night.
Oh, nice.
So it was cool. Yeah, very well done.
You know, just really impressive, just the number of singers that are there. Yeah. All the corners together in the one spot. Yeah. Number of visitors.
There's a feature that's cruising around town, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Good catch. As I leaned back and there was a windshield that just.
Oh, yes. Picking up on the camera. So, okay, we're good to go.
Are we good to go? Okay, well, we'll call this meeting, this planning committee agenda or planning committee meeting for the Catholic Regional District to order for Wednesday, July 5th already. I want to welcome everybody for coming and good to see everybody. I do recognize we're holding this meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin First Nation. First order of business is approval of the agenda. We have a motion. Seconder. Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda? Any addition? All in favor? Carried. This is adoption of our minutes. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? As seen. Mover for adoption of the minutes. Dr. Gisborne. McCormick, seconder. Thanks for that. All in favor? Any opposed? I believe it's time for a delegation. So, and we have a registered delegation, Clarke Fuller and Sherri Payne. Sorry?
I was just letting them know.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, come on up. And basically we give routinely 10 minutes for your presentation. And then at the end, we'll have time for just some questions. No kind of debate, but we'll just, if any of the directors have questions, we'll give them to you. So everybody ready there? We got the timer and everything.
We won't take the 10 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Be present in case there were any questions. And we are representing our contracting, Marjorie and Bob Babwin. And this is regarding the preliminary application for the subdivision for the 3 lots, 1956 Roberts Road. We've put in all our rationale. Okay. So we've all gone through it. And we just wanted to be present in case there were any questions.
We're assuming you guys have all read it and what's going on. So if you have any questions, just fire them on.
It's coming up shortly, of course, on our agenda if you've seen it. Just wondering if any directors have any questions for the delegation.
I do.
To Gisborne.
I'm just trying to get the right page here in the staff report. We get a lot of pages on our agenda.
Yeah, some time to get to that.
I just had it, and then here we go. In the staff report, because of minimum lot sizes in the OCP, the application is below the minimum lot size, and it's for a 3-lot subdivision. If the board does turn down a 3-lot subdivision, would you still be interested in pursuing a 2-lot subdivision?
That's something we'll have to discuss with Mr. Babune after the fact. I can't speak on that at this point. He may or may not.
Okay.
But we're trying to work within the Ministry of Health minimum lot sizing for various reasons. You know, we don't want to make it too small, but by the same token, we don't feel that 5 acre lot is a little bit on the big side too, considering the lots in the area, a lot of them down to 1/3 of an acre, as you know, but that's not what we're.
That's my question.
Yeah, and actually, I had the same question. I did see it referenced in the presentation, and it's quite a fulsome report that we have, so I don't really have any questions myself. Anybody else? Thank you for your time.
We're okay to sit for a few minutes.
Yep. Please do. I don't have any unfinished business on the agenda. Any unfinished business from the floor? No. Correspondence. We usually handle by report only. Maybe I can ask corporate officer if I can bring this up in the rising
I think that you could ask correct questions of staff
Yeah.
now and then determine if you want to move it to
Great.
business arising.
Great. Well, I will do so. I would question. I did see the supporting documentation from a previous staff report, I believe in 2021, about the correspondence referenced here in 6.1. Maybe Ms. Rodden, can you educate me if the request for a proper assessment of that area as per the report, was that communicated to the proponent or not?
Through the chair, yes, back in September 2021, when the board passed the resolution, the applicant and their agent, Morgan Roosenmaallen, were notified and provided a copy of the board resolution. And I did have a couple of telephone calls after that with them about the requirement for a riparian area protection regulation report.
Thanks, that's the one. Do you personally feel there's any benefit of reiterating that requirement to the proponent at this time? If so, I can make a motion.
Through the chair, there is a standing resolution, and the correspondence is asking to be freed of the obligation in the covenant, which is, well, it's different wording than what they asked back in 2021. In staff's opinion, the same requirement should be asked of the applicant because we have insufficient environmental information to know if it's a fish-bearing creek or what the impacts are of burying the lines, etc.
Great, so that's my interpretation as well. Thank you. I will not make a motion. Thank you for that. We'll move on to section 8 reports. 8.1 is the subdivision application for 1956 Roberts Road. There is a recommendation for this committee. Do I have a mover? Director McCormick, seconder Director Brander. Discussion on the matter. Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. Even though the lots are smaller than what's specified in the OCP, I personally don't have a problem with that because as we move forward in this housing crunch that we're in and the great demand for affordable housing, the smaller a property is, the more affordable it is. And I believe that it makes sense to support this application in light of the fact that we need more affordable housing in the area.
Thank you. Director Brenner.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree with Director McCormick, and also given the fact that the lot sizes still satisfy the Vancouver Coastal Health requirements for a serviced lot, and that they fit within the nature of the neighborhood. So I'm prepared to support this.
Thank you, Chair. Taking a look at the Area C official community plan, part 1, page 1. Official community plans provide a long-term vision and are often referred to in legal text as the constituents of the constitutions of land use planning. Bill Bolhauser, the renowned author of Planning Law and Practice in BC, describes official community plans as a high-level plan expected to implement principles that govern the overall direction and pace of development at a policy level. The effect of an OCP includes regional board land use planning actions must be consistent, and the board can do nothing contrary. To me, when I read that statement on page 1 of the OCP, it makes me think that the OCP policies are clear and outlined for a reason. And they were done so with fairly extensive public engagement. Personally, the smaller lots, I don't really have an issue with, but professionally, I have to uphold the policies of the official community plan. The property is designated as was it rural residential? And rural residential 2.3.1.2 states the following. Within the rural residential designations, parcel sizes for subdivision purposes will be as follows. Average parcel size, 2 hectares, minimum parcel size, 1.4 hectares. The ability to meet minimum lot sizes is dependent on site conditions, including slope and native mineral soil depth. Property owners should refer to Vancouver Coastal Health Subdivision guidelines. In the staff report, it talks about how there's some confusion between the average parcel size, minimum parcel size, and VCH guidelines. VCH guidelines stipulate minimum parcel size of 1 hectare. And the staff have pointed out that there is some discrepancy there. My understanding of this policy from asking many years ago, previous directors, was that the OCP set out minimum lot size. And in this case, it's 1.4 hectares. Just because you could have a 1.4 hectare size doesn't necessarily mean that you could meet BCH requirements. And there were issues in Area B and Area C in the past when a property was subdivided that was, the minimum lot size of the OCP, but it didn't have proper perk. It didn't have, water supply, a chunk of granite. Not talking about this property in question, but that was an issue where properties were being subdivided and they couldn't meet BCH requirements. I understand it, Ministry of Transportation now must follow the BCH guidelines, but our OCP, I don't see it as contradictory. I don't see it as confusing the two. The first hurdle you need to get over is the minimum parcel size. The second hurdle you need to get over is the VCH guidelines. So the minimum parcel size is outlined as 1.4 hectares. And if a property owner wants to subdivide less than 1.4 hectares, then I think that should be an OCP amendment. Otherwise, we should be turning down the application for 3. 2, I think, would meet the criteria. I know there's the average parcel size, and that becomes another long history. I don't know if people have the attention for that. But if it doesn't even meet the minimum parcel size, then referencing back to page 1, which says regional district land use planning decisions shall not be contrary to the OCP policies. So that's where I don't support the application. And when it comes to affordable housing, sure, smaller lot sizes would mean more affordable housing if we only allow 1 dwelling per parcel. But that's something that is changing and is actually even later on the agenda.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Maybe I could ask Ms. Rodden to comment on OCP amendments, changes relevant to this application or the discussion we've just had. Is that it,
through the chair, could you repeat what's the question?
Director Gisborne suggests that that this kind of creates a situation for an OCP amendment. I believe I heard you say.
Yes, if in my opinion, if someone wants to subdivide a parcel smaller than what the OCP minimum lot size is, then if they want to subdivide smaller than the minimum lot size for that property classification in the OCP, then I would recommend that they go to an OCP amendment. So I believe it's rural residential. If the property owner really wants to subdivide smaller than 1.4 hectares, then I would suggest that they apply for a low density residential OCP amendment, because then the minimum parcel size not serviced by a water supply system would be 1 hectare, Though I seem to recall in the staff report that it's on the Stillwater water system. I'm saying nods. So even if they went to low density residential, they are on a water system, and that would actually mean minimum parcel size would be 0.4 hectares or 1 acre. So if they did an OCP amendment, not only could they go less than 1.4, they could go even smaller than that.
Ms. Rodden, any comments?
Through the chair, yes, that is an option. I mean, it is at the discretion of the board if you wanted to set a condition for the applicant be required to apply for an OCP amendment. I will caution that that comes at a significant cost to the applicant. It's $1,000 to make application, and it's not a quick process. It has to go through all the steps of an amending bylaw and public hearing. And I think the report speaks for itself. Staff have done a thorough policy review. And I think any board decision related to land use is going to be a balance of considering the different policies that the property is affected by. Staff felt that it was reasonable to recommend approval of a smaller parcel size because of that contradiction in the minimum parcel size policy statement, where it actually references the Vancouver Coastal Health Subdivision Guideline. And also, I will note that the size of all 3 proposed parcels is below 2 hectares. And in the rural residential land use policies, properties that are larger than 2 hectares would be allowed to have home-based industry. And with the size of these parcels, home-based industry would not be a recommended use. And therefore, it's more in keeping with the rural character and the rural residential neighborhood.
Thank you for your comments. I do agree that the report is pretty fulsome and delves into all the aspects that we've been talking about and more that I didn't think of. I do think that so many things we talk about are about balance, and the report also identifies quite a few different rationale for the recommendation, and to me it does strike a balance with the character of that neighborhood and the intent, the water supply systems, all the different factors there. So I'm prepared to support the motion as it stands. Any other discussion, Director Gisborne?
Yeah. I like the staff report, but there's something I have to disagree with it. States furthermore, policy 2.3.1.2 contains somewhat contradictory statements. I don't think they're contradictory at all. They are 2 separate hurdles that an applicant has to get over. First hurdle is minimum parcel size 1.4 hectares. Second hurdle, can you actually get Vancouver Coastal Health servicing on the site? It's not, if you get over one hurdle, you don't have to worry about the second. It's fairly clear in my opinion. They're not contradictory at all. And the minimum parcel size is 1.4. This proposal is 1.1, 1.11, 1.13, and 1.9. The average is supposed to be 2. And not a single one of these parcels is above the average. So we're the leaders of this community, and we ask the public to help us write these OCPs. We want developers to follow our OCPs. But I find it difficult that if we are not following the policies of the OCP, then how can we expect a developer to follow the policies of the OCP? And how can we expect good public engagement when it seems like we're not giving this document the respect it deserves? And as a result, and it's not about just this one application, this is about future applications and all applications. if we're going to essentially ignore the 1.4 minimum lot size, then why is it there? Like, why don't we just change the OCP and say, yeah, we created this document with the public's input. The public said 1.4 hectares. We're ignoring it. So why don't we actually do a policy change and go through the process to have it go down to 1 hectare? Because otherwise, why have it?
Thank you for your comments. Maybe Ms. Rodden, one more time, just in the conclusion of the report, it does say staff advice supporting the subdivision application with conditions to ensure consistency with that OCP. So can you maybe solidify if we are being consistent with our OCP?
Through the chair, for the most part, yes, this proposal is consistent. If you want to adhere strictly to the language that Director Gisborne has flagged, then there is a variance from the minimum parcel size. But as staff have outlined, we do feel there is a contradiction in that statement, and it's misleading to the public that a 1 hectare minimum is possible.
Any further, Director Brander?
I'd just like to point out that as far as I'm concerned, we are in the middle of a process to potentially amend the OCPs to allow for 1 hectare or hectare minimum lot sizes now. So that process is underway. And we are going to be engaging in the public engagement in the near future. That's it.
Okay, we'll give you one more there, Director.
We're doing
third kick.
I thought we were adjusting density per parcel, not minimum parcel size, with updating of the OCP. And I don't see a contradiction in our OCP. I've read it myself. I've read it to members of the public, and I read it and I said, what does this sound like to you? And they all say the same thing. It's black and white, 1.4 hectares, minimum parcel size. I don't see a contradiction. And if there was a contradiction, I'm sure it would have been flagged back in 2013 when the OCP was adopted. When we create these documents, we get community consultation, we get committees strict. Texada's OCP was very thorough and in-depth, and a policy like that, it has a lot of eyes on it when it gets adopted. It's not self-contradictory. 1.4, it's 2 hurdles. You got to get over 1, and then you got to get over the second. It's not 1, it's 1.4. And I'm not aware of us changing minimum lot sizes for the OCP amendments. I know we're talking about changing the OCP for density per parcel, but not parcel size. That's not what was on the table in May.
Okay.
So am I confused?
Well, I need a little refreshing on that one myself, but Ms. Rodden, is that true what we're considering as far as our OCP amendments?
I would, through the chair, I think the engagement on the OCPs in Area A and Area C, we're going to hear a lot from the public. We are going with a draft or with amending bylaws that sit at second reading when we go through the engagement. And we don't know what we're going to hear yet because we haven't had the engagement. But I would like to just draw the attention back to this application. And in the conclusion, there is an alternative provided by staff.
Yeah, I would support the alternative provided by staff, and looking at the draft 1 area COCP that we've done through first reading, I don't see alteration of minimum parcel sizes. So it's not like, yes, we can hear all kinds of things from the public, you know, public can complain the moon's too big, but that's not what's in front of us.
So is this considered an amendment to the?
You would need to put an amendment on the table.
I'll move that we amend the resolution to be the second option.
Sorry.
Or would it be better to vote this one down and
Catch up here.
Yes, let me just see what,
Give you
no rush, our next meeting's at 1.
so I don't know that you could amend the current motion to say what that says, because this one is advising that you have no objection. And then this one is saying that you would be advising the Ministry of Transportation that they would need to amend their proposal from a 3-lot subdivision to a 2-lot subdivision. So they're two considerations.
Okay, so would we kind of move each independently? Is that how?
So you can't support this one and then do the next one. So if you want to recommend going from a 3-lot to a 2-lot, you would either need to agree to withdraw this motion from the table, all of you, or vote it down and then move an alternate motion.
Okay.
But we do have a motion on the table with a mover and a seconder.
Okay,
so
that's right. That's right. Okay, so I think it's time to put the matter to a vote. All those in favor of the the first part of this discussion. Motion is carried. Oh, sorry, any opposed? Director Gisborne. Sorry about that. The motion is now carried. Okay, 8.2. Provincial Referral for Water Act application for unnamed wetlands, vicinity of Butterfly Point, Banana Area D. So moved by Director McCormick, seconded by Brander. Discussion. Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions, probably for Ms. Rodden. The first question is, what is the status of the wetlands now? Is there any kind of stream or pond there, or is it a swamp, or what is it that we're talking about?
Through the chair, there has been a assessment done by a registered professional biologist, and their report was attached to the application. And I think I will defer to Ms. Dykstra to provide any detail on that, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, there was some wetland areas identified by the registered professional, and they recommended a number of steps for the applicant to take regarding those areas of water.
Could you outline in the Coles Notes version what those steps are? Like, what do they have to do? Because that's not built, there's none of that built into the recommendation, so I'm just wondering what the steps are and if the applicant needs to adhere to them if it is not in our motion.
Thank you. Through the chair, they were provided with direction through their riparian area registered professional, and the application is for modification and drainage of the water that is there. So the mitigations are to be adhered to through the provincial ministry's permitting process, and the ministry provides guidance to the applicant in the form of management plans and conservation plans. And I believe those were spoken to in the staff report regarding the assessments. There was two professional assessments that were done under the Water Act application. And they are applying for changes and improvements around a stream. Does that answer your question?
Partly, yes, thank you. Julia, the in and around the stream, is there a stream there now?
Through the chair, as far as I can tell, it's not a stream, but there are some sort of boggy wetland areas from the photos that were provided by the riparian area assessment.
So in other words,
Ms.
that's
Rodman might have a comment too. She had her hand up on that one.
Through the chair, yes, I do have an additional comment. If you look on page 66 of 96, the environmental assessments are discussed there in Cole's note version. So in the lower half of the page, it was a wetland assessment, and there's a bit of just a synopsis there about what it contains. So they look to identify if avoidance or redesign is possible. They calculated the amount of wetland habitat that may be affected and identified suitable mitigation options. And so the ministry, the approving ministry for this application, will consider the full findings of that environmental assessment that was completed. And they will adjust the application area if needed, or maybe the mitigation options will address the environmental issues.
thank you. One more question.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. And my final question is about storage and the capacity of this area to be a viable storage area for an indefinite period of time. I'm just wondering, is this going to last 20 years or 30 years, or it's to house the overburden, as I understand it, that they've dug up. So do we have any idea how long this would last? And are we going to see another application in 5 years' time to expand that area for storage?
Ms. Rodman?
Yeah, through the chair, it is an existing mine. This is expanding the footprint somewhat. And Julia, are you aware what the time frame is for the license? No, but I in general, I think the province is going to 30-year licenses. So it's less of a burden on business to be reapplying every 5 years. But we could look into that and let you know after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Quick question for you, Director, is there's no community activity in this active mine area, is there? Okay, great.
No, but my concern was, could it have been a fish bearing?
Sure, I was just
whatever,
thought came to mind. Sometimes we get pretty close, and I saw there's a residential area sort of down the road from there.
It's not far, but no, this is not an area used by the community.
Great. Any further discussion, Director Gisborne?
Yeah. Project activities, 3 of 14 of the report. The proposed expansion area is approximately 5.5 hectares and contains 4 small wetlands totaling approximately 0.22 hectares in area. Map of application's work area for this referral is attached to this report as in C. Applicant states that in order to prepare the foundation for the proposed waste rock expansion, the wetlands will need to be drained. The applicant states that the surface ditching or swales will be established to drain the wetlands to suitable discharge areas. The expansion area will need to be logged and stripped prior to construction. Wetlands are unique environmental features. As far as carbon sequestering and climate change and all that jazz, wetlands are more efficient than streams. They're more efficient than lakes. And a 0.22 hectare coverage of wetland doesn't really cover the full scope of how far these things can be under the surface. If the applicant was making an application to, drain this wetland and then, revitalize another portion through their drainage to make another wetland, I wouldn't be so hesitant to support such an application. But at this time, I don't really want to support draining wetlands without any plan to, you know, mitigate that impact by, say, creating additional wetlands. Kind of like, you know, when you got ALR, you want to take the land out of the ALR, you got to find some new ALR to add into it so that you don't end up with a net loss. However, this is Ministry of Mines, and I know that they will do what they wish at the end of the day. So no, I do think we do have an objection. The motion before us is that the regional district has no objection. Myself, I object to draining wetlands. So,
Ms. Dykstra, did I see your hand go up? No? Okay, sorry about that. I do see in the report consideration of, you know, wetlands, riparian areas, and definitely assessments that are required by professionals, conducted site level assessments, etc. You know, and for me, this is an active, long-standing resource extraction area that's designated for that. And I think that all the considerations of sort of higher impacts will be considered here, and they'll be taken out of the proposed area. So I'm prepared to support this application. Any other discussion on the matter? We'll raise the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? I remember this time. Thank you.
thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Here, next one, another Mines Act permit, Spectacle Lake. We have a recommendation before us. Do we have a mover?
For discussion purposes, yes.
Okay, Director McCormick, Director Brander, seconder. Discussion, please, Director.
Thank you, Chair. When I first read this report, I had some real concerns, mainly about the water capacity that they would be requiring for their work. And after having, you know, quite an in-depth dialogue with the chair of the Venanda Improvement District, I've been reassured that they do have sufficient capacity to meet the new subdivisions that are in place with new houses under construction, and provide water for this operation as well. So that concern was largely alleviated. I'd like to say that I really appreciate staff for including the condition that is written into the recommendation that comes directly from our OCP. And I think it's really crucial that this be rehabilitated as the project goes along. They'll be drilling up to 75 boreholes. And if each one is, you know, covered and planted or whatever at the end of that use, then I think it would be a lot less disruptive. But the other concern I have is about Crescent Bay Road, which this project straddles on both sides of Crescent Bay Road. Now, there are a number of residents who live along Crescent Bay Road. Our golf course is along Crescent Bay Road. The oldest continuously operating farm on the island, 109 years. The Woodhead Farm is there, plus a number of residential properties. And my question then, Chair, is about the impact to those people with this proposed project straddling both sides of that road.
Maybe our planning staff has any comments on public feedback or neighbors or any considerations there? Ms. Rodden, anything?
Through the chair, public consultation is the responsibility of the province, because this is an application to the province. However, staff have not received any correspondence in response to this report being on the agenda. So we're not aware of any concerns.
In staff's opinion, Ms. Rodden and Ms. Dykstra, what would the impacts be to Crescent Bay Road of this operation? In your professional opinions?
You know, it's in an area designated resource, and mining is a common activity, mining exploration and extraction and processing is a common activity on Texada. So I can't see it being creating much conflict.
Okay, so there would be no disruption in the use of Crescent Bay Road by people who need to use it?
Through the chair, based on staff's review of the application, no.
Thank you.
Just one quick confirmation question, maybe Ms. Maraudon. This area was previously mined and kind of overturned, or is this fresh territory? Can you remind me?
I will defer to Julia Dykstra.
Thank you, through the chair. This is an existing brownfield site, and it was a former mill that was run by the present landowners. And the site is quite large, 65 hectares in size, with Crescent Bay Road running through it. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
And when you say brownfield, what's the definition?
Thank you, through the chair. Brownfield site is a site that's been previously disturbed rather than a greenfield site, which would be raw land.
Very good. Thanks for the definition. Appreciate that.
One further question, Chair. Thank you. What is it that they're going to mine? Is it limestone or what? Because I didn't see that anywhere in the application.
Any information on that, Ms. Dykstra?
Thank you, through the chair. No, I did not have time to follow up with the applicant given the short turnaround time to get this report to the planning committee. So I was not able to investigate what their purpose of their mineral extraction was.
Do we know what it was before?
On the present site,
on this site?
Yeah, it was a lumber mill, a sawmill.
Not a mine.
Right.
Not a mine, no.
Thank you.
Director Gisborne.
Yeah, the application is, in my opinion, fairly benign. Small track mounted diamond drag using pre-existing deactivated forestry trails to access drill locations. So yeah, they're just scouting at this point, in my opinion, exploration. The impact to the community, the impact to the neighbors, I guess will all be dependent on what they find and whether the investors, whatever it is they're doing, actually might may or may not happen. So I have no issue right now with the preliminary drilling. I guess it all depends on what they find. But you know, we might just be looking for more limestone. There's plenty of that on Texada. So.
Any further discussion? Raise the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you. All right. Going to new business 9.1, public engagement proposed options for Area B OCP changes. Policy director.
Can you hand that to the chair?
I can grab it. Safety first, yeah.
Oh, my apologies. I was gonna have this.
Do we hold up? Do we need a motion first?
It's up to.
So,
yeah, I'm not quite sure what is being distributed right now. It's not part of.
Let's have a little discussion first.
Yeah, shall we? I'll thank you, Chair. What I've distributed for discussion purposes, the first several pages are just from the OCP. What I've suggested is, changes to 2.31, 2.32, and 2.33. So that's essentially the first 4 pages. The first 5 pages, because the first 2 is just plan, foundation, and general objectives. So that's just in our OCP. The second to last page says May draft. That was the proposal that we took a look at back in May for changing density. And then the very last page has just some options that I'd like to kind of propose and discuss. If we do need a motion on the floor, I'll be happy to make one. But the reason for this, and pardon if I'm a little flustered with everything going on at home and being half awake. The reason for this is back in January and February, I was asking for options in terms of changing the Area B OCP, especially around density. One of the challenges that we have in Area B is up on Nootka, where we have a zoning bylaw and it restricts, the number of dwelling units per parcel or per hectare. The challenge there is that we're looking at changing our OCPs to kind of get away from the one dwelling per parcel kind of model, and it seems like there's a lot of that kind of movement going on around the province. So taking a look at what other communities done, even what other countries have done, they bring in other options, because think of it like a pendulum. Residential density, if it's one dwelling per hectare, then that's a very restrictive end of the pendulum. If we were to go with what was discussed back in May, which is you can have as many dwellings as Vancouver Coastal Health will allow, in my opinion, that's allowing the pendulum to swing very hard in the other direction. And I believe our job is to try and find some level of balance. And I don't know everything. So the motion is to have some options about where that balance could lie, and then bring that to the public of Area B. Also, I'm sure the people on Nootka will be really excited to get involved, because as I understand the Local Government Act changes, the OCP is the guiding document for local government zoning bylaws. So I would also be interested in, a simultaneous OCP amendment and updating the Nootka Street zoning bylaw to have that same and consistent language. So what I've put on the very last page is a couple of options, and I pulled these numbers from the Ministry of Agriculture because over on ALR, we can have a 500 square meter dwelling, and then you can have a secondary 90 square meter dwelling. And currently in Area B, you can have your principal dwelling and you can have a secondary suite. So I kind of just, took that kind of guideline from the province and rounded up to get 600 square meter. The Ministry of Agriculture has stipulated that 600 square meters is the floor area ratio, and I've included some pictures on the bottom to what floor area means, because I know without pictures it can get lost. And floor area ratio includes all the different floors, and that can be a little bit hard to determine if we don't have building permits, which we don't. So I was a little bit more interested in the building coverage ratio, which I don't see as often used, but that I found quite easy to kind of figure out, because I took a look up on Nootka, and just using our IMAP, our program, where you can actually take a look at a structure and click it out and go, okay, yeah, that one's under 600. Oh, that one's under 600, and I think that would help us and help the community kind of make it clear, but also encourage people to say, look, if you want to go up, it's better than going out. And yes, 600 square meters is a lot, of about 6,000 square feet. But when you're taking a look at an average of 2 hectares or even 1 hectare, it's like 6% of the property. So.
I really do appreciate the explanation and the hard work. I think just a point of order, that these papers were submitted late, so we're kind of just getting them now and trying to wrap our minds around them. They weren't on the agenda, so the proper way to do it is for us to accept their submission as a group here now. So all the other directors, are you prepared to accept these documents? I am at this point. Dr. McCormick?
I have a couple of questions, which I'd like to know the answer to before I make up my mind.
First, we have had a late submission to the agenda, and we already have approved the agenda. So to do that, you guys need to accept the papers if you're going to debate them. I think they form part of the motion if I'm reading this. I think if you're going to continue debating and discussing them, they should form part of the they form part of the agenda. You should first accept them as an addition to the agenda, and then you could move on to the motion. But if you need some questions for clarity prior to that, yeah, that would be okay.
Okay, well, let's start with the question then.
Okay. Okay, so how, Director Gisborne, you put a recommendation that we received with the agenda, and I'd like to know, Chair, how this differs from the public engagement that had been proposed by staff that was supported in areas A and C. What's different about this?
Well, maybe Ms. Rodden, can we ask? Oh, she hasn't seen it, so therefore we gotta actually accept it and then distribute it.
Yes, so she won't have a chance.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Then I, if I may, Chair, would prefer to accept this kind of as a notice of motion, have time to digest the information, find answers to some of the questions by talking to staff, and then come prepared to debate it at the next planning committee.
I agree.
My intention isn't to, get us to make a decision today. I'm a big fan of what Ellie Mina had said about, committee is for discussion and then board is for our debate. So the only kind of new document is the very last one. And it's really about getting the discussion to happen around the planning committee. And if we want to postpone it till next month where, the planning staff can take a look. And the motion before us that is, that I've proposed is proposed options. So the first step in my mind was to bring our current OCP policies. We have the draft from back in May that we've all seen and debated then. And I've just included on the very last page just kind of some options. But what we have for area A and area C is a OCP change that's gone through first reading. So the public, yes, they can have all kinds of input, but really what's before the public for those two is either the existing OCP or the current proposed change. And what I would like to see for area B is some more options, because right now, if you have a draft one that we've kind of adopted draft one, then it's kind of it becomes binary. It's either this or something else. And so if we do postpone this, but I'd like to have some discussion around the table, if other directors have ideas or options or things that they would like to request, because area B has this unique challenge of being butted up right against the city and all kinds of development pressure. So we got to find that balance.
So, Officer, maybe you could recommend how to handle this. We have a recommendation.
Oh, well, so we don't have anything on the table now. I have heard from Director McCormick.
We just had discussion. That's right.
So perhaps the right move might be, if you're not ready to debate the information in this package, the right move might be to refer the submission and the motion on the agenda to the next planning committee. Is that, sorry, I'm trying to suss out.
Well, I think that's where my head is at, Director McCormick.
Yeah.
Sure. One more kick here. Let's be brief.
I'll be brief. I'll just like to reiterate the intention is not to debate this item today. It's to discuss it. Okay. And I'm here to be involved in the discussion and hear what other directors' thoughts are, and then next meeting we can get into even deeper discussion and kind of hammer out where some of these where we think options could be to get that pendulum a little bit more balanced and in line with the wishes of the community, especially up on Nootka. So
yeah, good. Like I say, lots of good homework here, which I appreciate. I think is an amendment to the recommendation to
We
refer
don't
it.
have
We
any
don't have
on the
any other
email.
recommendation. Like to refer this to the August.
The submission and
Yes.
the motion
Yes.
to the August planning committee.
Yes.
And I'm happy with that, but I would also just like the other directors to think about it, and if they got any other ideas for options, then please bring it forward in in the August planning committee meeting, where we can discuss, but not debate.
Motion, do I have a seconder to refer this?
I'll move.
Any other discussion about referral to August?
Excuse me, Chair, who's the person seconder?
Director
moved.
Lennox moved the referral.
Thanks for checking. Okay, no discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. Good discussion. What the heck are we now? Question period. Do we have any questions from the gallery of two? Any further questions?
We are a little bit confused where we sit here. We didn't submit our the Vancouver Coastal Health information, but that has been approved. Subdivision. So should I submit that paperwork, or is it necessary?
I think they're two different processes, but maybe Ms. Rodden, do you have any recommendation for the proponents?
Through the chair, for clarity, I mean, the committee did adopt the resolution, so recommending to the board to advise the Ministry of Transportation that they had no objection to the proposed 3-lot subdivision, subject to the 2 conditions. So the resolution goes to the board at the end of the month, and then the board staff will provide the board resolution to the ministry. And at the end of the day, the approving authority is the Ministry of Transportation. So there's no need for.
I'll clarify the process for you. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the media, any questions from the media?
Thank you, Chair. Galinsky from the Peak here. With regard to new business just concluded, I am wondering if I can procure a copy of the documentation that was provided by Director Gisborne.
I'm being told yes, through our staff.
I think I got an electronic version I can send off.
Great.
Through the chair, thank you very much, Director. That was my question.
Great. Okay, I don't think we have, the next order is in camera. We don't have a proposed closed session. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Director